I'm Mike Smith. I do a bunch of stuff. So I own a few different businesses, or I'm a part owner of a few different businesses. I run a design build remodeling company called Brownsmith Restoration. We specialize in period design and old home renovation. I own a cool store called Forage Modern Workshop. I don't even know if we're really a store anymore so much as like a place that has cool stuff that we like, that maybe sometimes some people buy. It's weird. I am a part owner of Hilo Diner. I'm very proud of that. We brought a vintage diner to the Twin Cities from the East Coast and started a restaurant. I also run Anderson Realty, which is a real estate brokerage that my grandma started many years ago, and I'm honored to be the person running it these days. Thank you, Meg, for asking me to be here. Thank you all for coming. I hope this isn't too awkward for anybody except for myself. Oops, sorry. I am really afraid of speaking in public, or even just to people in general. I can talk to people like one-on-one, I think, just fine. But if there's like 4 people in a room, I just prefer to not talk. So this is like a major personal growth moment for me. Thank you. I have these like seemingly cool businesses. I think they are cool. I'm very proud of them. But you would think I was like a designer kind of guy or something, and I certainly am not a designer. I never studied design. I don't know that I've studied anything, actually. I say that I identify as an artist. I'm very much led by intuition and a gut sense of what I should do. I feel as though I have a point of view and a vision of like the world and the way that I want it to be. And I just do things in order to make the world how I wish it was. Or if I see a missing thing, I'll do it, like this store, Forage Modern Workshop. My goal for this talk today is that I would hope that I would say something that will make your life better. I'm not going to make anybody a better designer. I'm not going to make anybody a better business person. But perhaps there's something in my story that you could take and apply to your own life and your own story in a way that would make you happier or more honest or complete or however it should be. But geez, okay, I do have notes. As I'm talking, we're going to just be clicking through a bunch of images. So you'll see photos of things that I've been involved with. I say that I'm a creative director, not a designer, and I'm not a business person. I'm not maybe even an artist. I guess I'm a creative director. So I run the design portion of our company, and I work with designers in multiple fields in order to achieve like branding and things for my different businesses. I feel like the visual end of things I totally get immediately. I'm syncing and feeling an emotion and knowing how I want something to feel and look, but actually making it do that, it takes the discipline that I don't have. So I work with designers all the time, so thank you all for what you do. Let's see. And then I'm just going to maybe give you a warning. So I usually, if I'm talking one-on-one with somebody, within a matter of a couple of minutes, I start talking about if God is real or not, and it gets weird. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to not talk about that today, so probably most of what I'm going to talk about is if God is real or not. I just decided to be vulnerable and go right there and just plan on it rather than try to talk about something else and then just keep talking about it anyway. So I'm going to tell you my story, and in that there'll be a lot of like, is God real? I don't know. So that will be strange, and I'm sorry if you hate that. I'm not a preacher by any means. Maybe that's where I'll dive into my story. So my dad is a preacher. My dad's dad is a preacher. My dad's grandpa, well, some of these people are dead now. My dad is alive. My dad's grandpa's a preacher. My brother-in-laws are pastors. Everybody in my life, my in-laws are like the board leaders of a church. Like everybody in my life is in Christian ministry, very much deeply so. Earnest, faithful believers. I grew up in a intense spiritual world, and I struggled to connect, and I struggled to participate in it in a way that felt authentic. Desperately wanting my whole life to believe everything that everybody around me that I loved was believing so much. One of those people was my grandma. So I usually, when people come in and talk to me about my businesses, I usually start by telling people about my grandma, because everybody wants to know, like, so what do you do? Because they know through social media or something that I have a few different businesses, and it's maybe confusing if you follow me on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at Forage Modern Mike. My grandma started Anderson Realty in the late 1950s. She was a tiny Norwegian woman, under 5 feet tall. Respect shorties. She was very feisty. I want somebody to make a movie about my grandma. She had 5 kids. She had 25 plus foster children. I think they stopped counting at some point. She was the first woman on the board of the Assemblies of God. She not only ran the real estate brokerage, but she owned a laundromat, a travel agency, a restaurant, a farm, commercial real estate, bought and sold land, developed land. She just was a powerhouse woman in the mid-century years when it was even more difficult than it is now to do that. She tells me stories, or told me stories, of getting hate mail from men, other brokers and business owners that were threatening her and telling her that she was stealing the food from their children's tables. Just ridiculous things, like she couldn't provide for her own family, but they were supposed to be allowed to. So she met with intense adversity, like for years, but she didn't care about that. She just kept moving and kept doing stuff. The real estate part of her career was the consistent one for years. Until she couldn't walk upstairs anymore, she ran the real estate brokerage. It would be a case in which, like, a building in downtown Forest Lake, right on the main corner, would come up for sale, and she would identify that that would be a great restaurant location. So she'd buy the building and start a restaurant, and then run it for 5 years, and then sell the restaurant. I grew up watching my grandma run all these businesses. I didn't realize how formative it was for me. My early jobs were doing things like cleaning parking lots or scrubbing dumpsters or dealing with mold and asbestos, I'm sure, or whatever, but cleaning some building that she owned. My mom, my aunts, everybody. So everybody in my life is either in Christian ministry or they worked with and for my grandma, running these various businesses. When I was 15, I started working with my grandma and my new grandpa, my grandma's third husband. She has, again, a crazy, amazing, beautiful story, but when I was 15, she married this guy named Ray, and Ray was her high school sweetheart before he went off to World War II. She got married to another fellow who came back from World War II, and it did not go well. Had a few kids. That person is my biological grandfather. I hope this doesn't take 20 minutes already. I have no clue how to do this. Am I out of time? All right. I'll skip over a bunch of the stuff. So Ray was my grandma's high school sweetheart. Now, late in life, 60 years old, my grandma has romantic love for the first time. I'm 15 years old, and I could tell it was different. Ray was a kind man who had been a builder for his whole career. My grandma would buy a home. So I worked with him on 3 specific projects through like high school and like the couple years in college that I went to. Somebody in my parents' church would lose their home to foreclosure or would be about to lose their home to foreclosure. My grandma would help that person not get foreclosure or get foreclosed upon, buy a home that they could afford, and then buy their old home. And then Ray and I would fix it up. So we did that twice, and then the third scenario was a different scenario. But as a 15-year-old, that was a very powerful moment for me. It was my first experience in an old home. I grew up in the suburbs in like a new split-level home. I didn't know it was gross. I thought it was a home. But as a 15-year-old, I like fell in love with things like hardwood floors and asbestos and mold and plaster and all of those things that we know about old homes. But the character and this connection to like this history and like this strange nostalgia for a time in which I didn't even live, that kind of hit me pretty hard at 15. And I think then I knew I wanted to grow up and be like my grandma, perhaps. So there's still, oh yeah, I'm going to tell you 3 dreams that I've had. So the name of my talk was going to be my doppelganger dreams. I've had numerous times in my life I have these horrible dreams where I confront myself, and they're terrifying. So I'm sorry, some of them are intense and weird. And this is where I was going to tell you my first one. It was shortly after, God, I'm going to cry. Weird, I'm sorry. It was shortly after that first experience in working on the home with my grandma that I think I remember my first doppelganger dream. I came home from church camp. Again, everything revolves around church camp and God and pressure about saving the world and saving people from hell. And I went down into my bedroom. Thank you. I went down into my bedroom. I'm dreaming now, right? And there I was sleeping in my bed, and my dog was sleeping at the bottom of my bed as though it didn't even know that that wasn't me that was there in my house. And I, without thinking, just jumped on this person who was myself and started beating him. And that's about as much of the dream as I remember, is this intense physical confrontation where I was beating myself. I woke up feeling very weird and strange. I still feel very weird and strange. So I'll try to skip ahead in the story a bunch. I did complete high school. I continued to, I forgot the cool part, I'm in a band. So I've always, I've always wanted to be a rock star, right? So that was the thing that was gonna happen. Somehow I was gonna be a rock star and just be able to play music and play the drums and do that thing. So as a 15-year-old, I love old homes and I love heavy metal and I love hardcore, you know? So I did go to college for a couple of years. I should probably look at my notes. Talk about Dad, talk about Sylvia, tell first doppelganger dream. Oh yeah, college, now I got it. So I went to college. I went to a Bible school, of course, the same one my dad went to and the same one my grandfather went to and the same one everybody in the Assemblies of God goes to. It was a horrible experience. I was deeply conflicted. Even more so now, I'm like, I'm gonna be a man and I have to like either do this or not do this. So for me, going to Bible school was sort of my step of faith, they call it, in the Christian community, or maybe every community uses something like that. It was at Bible school that I took an art class. So I've always been a doodler, and like in high school, I didn't do anything except for draw. I like literally never did my homework. I just would draw and play music, and you don't have to like know school stuff if you're gonna be a rock star, right? I took an art class at Bible school, and I had an amazing teacher named Dr. Shirk. He did this all the time. And he was like 80, and like the year after I was there, he quit and joined the Peace Corps, and he's probably in Morocco, and he's probably 120 years old now. But he was incredible. But he had us read Robert Henry's The Art Spirit. So write that one down. This book hit me like no other book had ever hit me. Robert Henry was an art teacher in the late 1800s in the Victorian era, in the early 1900s, and he would travel between like Paris and New York and Europe, London, teaching at colleges, teaching artists. And it was when I read that book and read the words, all education is self-education. He talks about how artists are different than painters and different than designers, and the ability to paint or design comes from skill and practice and dedication and discipline. But artistry is something different. It comes from your gut. He talks a lot about how people confuse those things, and he's trying to make artists, not painters. But this quote, all education is self-education, hit me super hard, and I quit school. And I realized, like, I've never connected with school, and it was never the right place for me to be. I will tell you my second doppelganger dream. That's what the notes say. I remember it was during the couple of years when I was at college, I had discovered what I call the gay music from the 80s. And I love it. It's still my favorite. But became a big Erasure fan. And the Smiths and the Cure and all these other things. But I remember a very powerful dream. This one's not as terrifying. Where I was at North Oaks. I grew up in White Bear Lake, and North Oaks is a place close to that. But there's a beautiful lake, and my friends and I would go swimming there in high school. Well, I was back at Pleasant Lake in North Oaks by myself, and I was swimming, and the sky turned purple and blue and orange, and the lake was deep, deep, deep blue and black, and the song, the Erasure song, Am I Right? Wandering through the back roads, and the rain came crashing down on this man in his 20s. Am I right? Am I wrong? Or am I just dreaming? I didn't quite get it right, but if you know that song, it's really good, and if you don't, get you some Erasure. That was the soundtrack. It was an extremely surreal dream, and I was with myself in the lake, and I was being compelled by myself. Whoa, okay, to go further. And I remember hearing this deep, intense electric sound. And beneath me in the water were these huge, deep orange, pink bands of electricity and light that were just underneath me in the water. And it was very surreal and very moving, and again, this connection to this song that's kind of stayed with me till today. But am I right, am I wrong, or am I just dreaming? And I think it was about at that time when I started being honest with myself and with other people that I love, and kind of identified as agnostic. I decided it was more important to be honest with God and honest with man than to be right or to be wrong. And I don't know what else to do except for to be genuine and authentic and honest. Okay, so I quit school. Now we're getting to like the cool parts. So I was gonna be like my grandma and be an investor. In 2001, I'm old. In 2001, I became an appraiser. I started a residential real estate appraisal career for a few years. I learned a lot about understanding value in real estate. One of my cousins owns an appraisal company, and the years I spent working for her of course, I consider those as my college years or my studying years. How am I doing on time? Oh, I've got 10 seconds? I've got 10 more minutes. Okay, good. Hold on, everybody. I'm kind of doing a lot of Dr. Shirk here today. That makes me feel good. Okay, so we're getting to like some of the better parts here now, I think. You get this sense this deeply disturbed person growing up in a really loving Christian world, but having a hard time connecting. Finally now, as a young man, becoming like honest with myself and honest with my friends, and still not totally honest with my family and other people, but we'll get there. It seems all of the people that have, I guess that's not true. All of the people that have helped me with my real self and my career and like the things that I've done have been women, like my grandma. And then I worked for my cousin who was a woman for a few years, knowing that I wanted to not be an appraiser, but I wanted to be an investor and do what I saw my grandma do and buy buildings and start businesses and, I don't know, have money to like buy my grandkids rollerblades and stuff. Thank you, Grandma. I teamed up with my now business partner, James Brown, in 2005. After doing real estate appraisal for a few years, James and I bought a home and we fixed it up and sold it. It took us a few months. We made no money, but it was really fun. It felt like we could do anything. I felt like this great camaraderie. There was maybe a lot of boyhood bravado and like naive bravery involved in it, but I had a partner with me as far as like dreaming and doing all these things that I had seen. He kind of is a keep your foot on the gas kind of guy, and a little bit crazier than I am. Quixotic is the word, not crazy. And so when our energies came together, I think I know that it really helped compel me into pursuing these things that I had been dreaming about since I was 15 and thought perhaps I would be like my grandma. We started buying, fixing, selling homes. We started doing this before the foreclosure crisis. So in 2005, it was like really hard to find a foreclosure or a house that was at all affordable, or that you could fix up and sell and make money. We became Brownsmith Restoration in 2007 after winning an award for our historic renovation of a home in Red Wing, and we realized we could become this thing called Brownsmith Restoration, period design and old home specialists. We continued working together, ultimately started buying some commercial properties. We started a cabinet shop as an outflow of our construction company called Forage Modern Workshop. One thing led to another, and that building became a restaurant. I got to design and build my first restaurant. It's the Blue Door Longfellow, if you know that one. We then took Forage Modern Workshop, our cabinet shop, and then moved it to Lake Street, and it became, at that point, not a cabinet shop. We sold our cabinet equipment to Nate, who ran it, and he's now making cabinets for us out of a barn in Wisconsin. Good for him. And opened Forage as it is now. And our goal in opening Forage was to be a benefit somehow to the local design scene. This is pre-Instagram. This is a while back, or at least pre my involvement in any Instagram. I think it didn't exist when we opened it. But we knew of numerous local design makers, people that we thought were making really noteworthy things. And there wasn't a place for them to sell those things. There wasn't a platform where people could find them. So we made it a goal to open this store as a benefit to the greater design community that we were involved with from a remodeling standpoint, but had numerous interactions with architects and designers, and discovered Ralph Rapson a few years earlier than that, and then got way into Ralph Rapson's furniture. Kind of blew my mind. I'm like, whoa, the end of design is actually furniture, and like, weird, how do you do that? And I just really respect furniture designers still. So we opened Forage Modern Workshop. That was good. I had become a real estate agent. So back in like '07, when James and I had bought and fixed and sold a few homes, I realized that the realtors were making all the money, and like more money than we made spending 8 months fixing up an old house. So I thought, well, I should do that, and I can add it to like this scenario, not thinking that I was going to become a real salesperson or realtor, and certainly not thinking that I was going to take over my grandma's company. By the way, the company has always been only our family. It's been like 2 to 4 people. So she never grew it into Edina Realty, which is also started by a woman, which is cool. Just kept it really small and took care of our friends and family and church folks. But when I got my license to become a realtor, all of those people that knew me had maybe known the story of my grandma. In the real estate world, it's called sphere of influence. So I've heard people talk about Minnesota, like partly I'm successful because Minnesotans are so into their own spheres of influence. So you might be having a hard time breaking into that, and I'm sorry. But I had a natural, really large sphere of influence. All these people saw me as a housing expert and somebody who knew how to buy foreclosures, because I had been doing it for 2 years before. That was the only thing that happened. So I became really busy as a realtor in 2007, 2008. By 2010, my aunt, who I was working for, and who was running Anderson Realty, she decided to retire, and Mikey, you better get your broker's license. Okay, Aunt Norma. So I got my broker's license and took over Anderson Realty, which was basically just me at that time. Again, I'm thinking like, sure, I'll help you buy a home or sell a home because I know how to do that. I wasn't intentionally trying to become a busy realtor. I was trying to do artful, cool things like open a cool store or design a house addition that doesn't look like a house addition. It looks like it was always this way, and I'm fooling people into thinking this house had a huge kitchen or something. Identifying more as an artist than a business person. I've never really felt that I'm a driven person. I don't really call myself an entrepreneur, even though I have all these businesses. There just seems to always be work in front of me, and there seems to be something else that should be done. And so I somehow can't stop trying to do that other thing. I'm very, I should look at my notes. So I got into real estate. Oh, I missed a cool part. So after I quit school, I'm just parentheses, I'm gonna back up real quick. After I quit school, I really okay, so I guess I'm called an agnostic. What am I gonna do? I'm still in a band, and I'm still kind of thinking somehow God is gonna make my band work and make us famous rock stars. Because apparently if you do nothing, that's what happens, right? You become a famous rock star. We should have been working and touring and doing all these things that we didn't do. I remember watching Fight Club. So this isn't my Doppelganger. Okay, I'm not gonna try to ruin Fight Club for anybody who hasn't seen it. Watch Fight Club. Fight Club, rocked my world. I was fearful and paralyzed and doing nothing. Now I don't even know if God is real and what's the point of anything? It's nihilism. I'm still kind of there, but this Brad Pitt's character at one point takes a kid out of a convenience store. He's working at a convenience store, and he takes him behind the convenience store. Somehow violence works for me, sorry. And he I think he has a gun, and he tells this person, what did you want to do with your life? Did you want to just be a loser that works at a convenience store? And the guy's crying, no, I want to be a veterinarian or something. Do you remember what he wanted to be? Anyway, I want to be a veterinarian. I'm coming back here in 1 year, and I'm going to find you, and if you're not a veterinarian, I'm going to blow your head off. And like this kid, I assume, goes on and like, shit, yeah, I'm going to do my thing. Why am I working at a convenience store? Like, I have a life, and I could go do something. This movie, and I won't tell you the end and like the main thing about the movie, but I realized like, oh man, I could like do stuff. I could just, instead of being afraid and not doing anything, I could be afraid and do things. So that's like when I teamed up with James Brown. Now I'm going back. So I was supposed to tell you that part before I told you like how we started like doing all of this stuff. And I found a partner that helped me break out of that. And I'm very thankful that James came into my world, because I've definitely accomplished a lot more having him by my side. Okay, so Fight Club, real estate, Brownsmith, flipping homes, real estate license. There was a lot of work to do, and I did it. I'm married. I've been lucky in love. I met my wife in high school. We were like high school sweethearts. I'm very fortunate that throughout all of this, I've had a person who is just very stable and very loving and accepting of me in many, many ways. I'm not always fun to be around. I can be very moody. I stay pretty much just depressed, I think it's called. But she knows how to deal with that, and she's a chipper person. I think you'd like her, Meg. I was thinking we should try to hang out. She likes hanging out, like, and talking to people. I had my first son like 4 years ago. After being with Heidi since high school, we were married for 12 years and then weren't going to have kids because I was scared of like if God is real or not and what happens when they die, and like I have to teach them about all of these hard things in life and I can't handle it. Except we accidentally got pregnant. And Marshall was born, and he was a delight, the perfect baby, cheerful and just mellow and calm and huge and awesome and healthy. And I'm thankful. Okay, so that's going on. James, we were sitting in Forage Modern Workshop, which is where our office is. We now have this real estate brokerage. We're busy guys. We're remodeling way more homes than we should. We have this cool store. We hired Rebecca. Thank you, Rebecca, for being the central nervous system. Get yourself a good administrative person if you need one. I think you do need one. I know I need one. James said, "Hey, Mike," he knocked on the wall between our little offices, "come and look at this." And I came around the corner, and he had on his computer screen a picture of a gorgeous vintage diner, stainless steel beauty. We'd been thinking for 2 years, what do we do with this vacant Taco Bell across the street? And tried several different developments and talked with different restaurant people and all kinds of different things, like it could be this live-work thing. We'll build 8 units, and went down numerous roads, and finally he says, we buy this vintage diner and we stick it on the front of that Taco Bell. And it just hit me like crazy, like, yes, that's it. We're gonna do it. I really literally only said yes because I couldn't think of words, because words are hard for me. And we did. We brought it. It wasn't that diner, but a different one James found and orchestrated the whole thing and bringing it here and stick it in on the front of this old Taco Bell. And we teamed up with some other folks and opened High-Low Diner. So at this point, it appears as though I've have it all. I'm the guy with the cool store, and I have money because of this real estate brokerage. So much that I get to do things like open a diner, and like the world is my oyster. There's money laying everywhere. Go do a thing, and it will be successful. Like, I don't want to be flippant about it. We were working extremely hard all day, every day, doing as much as we could possibly do, but my second son was born. I'm going to get back into the weird stuff about God and stuff. Don't worry. My second son was born, accidental pregnancy. We don't know what we're doing anymore. a couple of years ago. He's 3 now. And he was born with a thing called esophageal atresia. So opposite of my other son in that he would have died if we were not in a hospital. His esophagus did not connect to his stomach, so he couldn't swallow. We spent 108 days in intensive care. He came really early. They ultimately did like 9 surgeries, and they got it all hooked up. And it was a crazy, crazy, surreal time in my life. I basically went numb. You're probably sensing lots of emotion from me today. Until Fight Club, I was this extremely emotional person that I am now again. But Fight Club happened, like, let's do it, let's kick ass, let's just do stuff. We're scared, but let's just go. And that was really fun, and I did that for several years. And then when Arthur, was born, he was in the hospital. All of that stuff came back, like, really hard. All of that success, doing all these things, affecting physical change on the planet. Nothing matters when your son's in like an incubator thing. I'm supposed to somehow get into my third doppelganger dream part. So my third dream, I guess I don't know how to do a good speech, but the third dream happened just a couple of years ago. It happened just after we opened Hilo. You might be seeing pictures like, this is the time in my life in which I grew my hair long again and grew a beard and got tinted sunglasses, or tinted regular glasses, but I was just trying to make the world go away. I didn't want to have it. I didn't know what to do and how to deal with it and whatever. So I really was like numb for like a couple of years until my dog died. Just when you thought the story couldn't get any worse. My dog died and I was crushed. I didn't cry one time when my son was in the hospital. I was totally like dead. Not even sad, I just was dead. But when my dog died, it was like a huge valve had opened, and all of the emotions and all these fears and all of this paranorma and all this other crazy stuff just kind of came back, and I cried for days. I'm extremely raw emotionally, and I do well covering it, I think, lots of times all day. So this third dream I had, I was back at church camp as an adult, as like a 39-year-old adult, being chased by myself, my doppelganger, who was taunting and jeering and teasing and just kept saying, "I'm your afterlife, I'm gonna kill you." And it was like swiping at my heels. I have like young adult vampire type dreams. I can fly and I can I'm running, but then I like push myself off a wall and I'm flying and I like push myself off the ground and then I hit it and I jump like up over trees and stuff. They're really cool dreams. You should have some like that. But this one was terrifying because this whole time, like, this slightly hotter version of myself was on my heels, taunting me and saying, like, "I'm gonna kill you and I'm your afterlife and you'll never escape. You will never get away from me." And I remember running across this field from like the main building, jumping up on top of the lake shore building where the cafeteria and like a bunch of hotel rooms and stuff are. And I ran and I jumped off of that building, again, very young adult movie-esque, and I landed in a pool that does not exist at the real camp. And then my doppelganger landed right next to me in the pool. And I grabbed him by the throat and I held him under the water and killed him. How weird is that? So I wake up and I feel super weird about this dream. I still feel really weird about that dream, and it's weird that I'm telling you all about it. Here's what I hope, what I guess I think maybe the point of this is. You are the only person who's going to stop you from doing the things that you should do. You are the only person who is going to stop you from becoming the person that you should become or that you could become. You are the only person that's going to stop you from doing the things that you need to do. You're your biggest opponent. You're your biggest competitor. It's not other people. It's not anything. There's nobody that's going to do something for you except for yourself. And I realize in saying that I'm a tall, white male with thick hair. I have advantages that some people don't. And I have like my grandma's story. Like, she blazed a trail. It was very hard for her to get respect and like do the things that she did. And it has been easy for me because of some of those things that are just built into my circumstance. And I'm aware of that. So I don't want to treat people in different scenarios, as though everything's awesome, just start 4 businesses. But for real, start 4 businesses. It's not going to be easy, and you're going to be scared, and you probably should be scared or there's a problem. Do I have another point to drive it home? There you go. That's it. I hope that you can kill your doppelganger. Thank you. Is that it?
We're out of time, no Q&A.
Okay.
You talked too much about God maybe not being real.
I know.
Which you didn't ever answered, so we don't know.
What?
You left us with a cliffhanger on if God's real or not.
Right. I think that's the cliffhanger I'm going to live on my whole life. So, yeah. No, I have no clue.
It doesn't say on your paper?
It doesn't.
Okay.
No, I was trying to look at the notes. Just be honest. That's the main goal.